Welcome to another episode of the Simple Man Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Battisto. We are going to be doing a Fargo preview show, and we got a California national team coach with us. It's Justin Martin. Justin is the head coach for the Granite Wrestling Club in San Diego. He wrestled at Grand Canyon University, RIP, as well as Clackamas Community College. Shout out to Clackamas. We're really excited to have him on. It's somebody that you just see all around all these different tournaments, all these kids tournaments. And Granite Hills, they've been tearing up the club game. They're sending a bunch of guys to Fargo. And since, again, we're coming up to Fargo week, really excited to have Justin on. And we're going to be talking about all things Fargo. Right now, we have episodes on Spotify as well as YouTube. If you guys are liking what you're hearing and have any feedback, have anything to say, you guys are welcome to leave us a comment, leave us a review on Spotify. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment on our YouTube channel. We're really trying to build our following, and we appreciate all the support that you guys have been giving us. Anyways, we're really excited to have Justin on today and talk about Fargo. Hope you guys enjoy the show. All right, Justin Martin, glad to have you on, man.
Yeah, glad to be here, man.
So, dude, when do you leave from Fargo?
Tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. Okay. Are you flying out of LAX?
No, myself, one of the other national team coaches are kind of the guys taking most of the San Diego kids out. So we fly out of San Diego.
Gotcha. I don't know why LAX is just programmed in my mind. It's like the go-to airport.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky to have San Diego. Otherwise, that's where we would be going.
Yeah. I've never been to the San Diego airport, but how far away is it from your house?
So us being out here in the East County, it's about 30 minutes. It's a little bit of a jaunt, but it's not terrible. It could be worse. When I was growing up in Oregon, we used to have to drive like an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to the airport. So,
dude, I forgot you. So you were a state champ in Oregon, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you went from what high school did you go to?
So I went to Redmond High School. They actually just won their first state title last year for the first time since like 1954 or something like that. So yeah, it was pretty cool for them. But went to Redmond all 4 years. And when I got done with high school, I kind of didn't have any idea how the recruiting process works. So thought that if I won a state title, they'd just come, barreling through my door and asking me to go to their school. I had good grades and really, I kind of had my sights set on University of Oregon where I thought I was going to go. I had a really good relationship with the head coach there. And just when I went to commit, he's like, kind of hold on. I think we might be dropping our program. And sure enough, a year later it was gone. And I was out of a plan. I'd pretty much tossed all the other recruiting letters out the window because my room was green and yellow growing up. So that's all I wanted to do. So then I ended up winning a title, thinking I was going to, still go D1. And then, but I just didn't know how to get there. And then I went to Western Regionals and FILAs that year and got picked up by Cal State Fullerton and went down, wrestled there for about month, 2 months, and then I heard they were going to be dropping their program too, and I'm like, mother effer, dude. So then I hit up Roden at Clackamas because he was actually my sophomore year in high school. His first year out of college, he was my head assistant at Redmond. So I just hit up Josh because he was trying to get me to stay home anyways, and this is like mid-September. They're about ready to start school, and I'm like, coach, I need help. I need somewhere to go. So he jammed me in a house with 4 other dudes. I lived in the living room until some of those guys quit, took over their room, but after Clackamas, I ended up going to GCU in Phoenix, wrestled there for another 2 years and got my degree and ended up back in the Northwest for a little bit. I was with my ex of like 7 years at the time. And I kind of told her, I'll go wherever you want to go. He followed me all the way down the West Coast and she wanted to go back home to Washington. So did that. We ended up breaking up. I moved home to Oregon, tried to start a club up there with one of my teammates he was a national champ at Southern Oregon Taylor Johnson. He fights in Bellator now, and
Yeah.
so I was trying to start things with him, and just wasn't going the way we wanted to. And my boy Brett Sanchez was down in San Diego, and it's just like, come down. My undergrad was sports management. He just wanted me to run the business side of UTV, and so I ended up packing my freaking truck up, loaded my dog, and just boxes what I could fit in my truck, and I moved down. Almost, I drove what now I know was the last exit before Mexico, and I stopped at a Travel J, and I slept there, and then hunted for an apartment, lived in a hotel for like 3 days, and then found an apartment and kind of just did the whole thing super live, dude.
Dude, just dude, that whole story, you're a savage, man. Like,
Yeah.
so let's back up a sec. So you were at Oregon, or no, you wanted to go to Oregon. They cut the program.
Yep.
And then as soon as you said Cal State Fullerton, I'm like, that's like, just thinking in my head the timeline. I was like, dude. So you're there for what, like 2 months? You said.
Yeah.
So you're there for 2 months, and then you kind of get stuck. So when you said like you weren't necessarily talking to a whole lot of schools when you were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So Road Dogg was your assistant at the time. When did he take over Clackamas?
I literally only got him in high school for a year. He was a high school coach for 1 year. I fell in love with the guy, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be. That was my sophomore year, so I would have been sophomore, junior, senior. I'd had 3 years with the guy, and like, man, I'm gonna be ready, because I didn't really have a club coach per se up there. I didn't really have anybody that was personally invested outside the 4 months that is wrestling season. So having somebody like Josh was huge. And I lost him that very next year. He got the head coaching job, but we still stayed super tight. And then, full circle, ended up going back and wrestling for the guy after Fullerton dropped their program, which ended up, one of the better things that could have happened in the long run of things.
Yeah. I mean, it just seemed like it kind of just worked out. Like you said, he was your high school coach and you had that relationship. Dude, the first time I met him, so I feel like I have to tell this story. Like, well, first time I met him, I thought he was an asshole. And
Yeah.
I told him that when we had him on the podcast. I was like, dude, I thought you're an asshole, man. And the story was, so Sean O'Rourke and I were cornering one of our buddies. It was like, we were redshirts, so we're at like an open. And your college coach can't coach you when you're redshirting like that. And Clackamas there was the SF Open, so Clackamas had brought their team there, and Road Dogg was in the other corner, and he's just saying like, he's like getting on the ref, and he's saying some stuff, and I didn't say it, and Sean didn't say it. It was one of our other buddies. He starts saying something directly to Josh Roden. And Josh Roden bounces back. He's, like we say something like, oh, you guys are just, just some JC, whatever. And just classic, like, D1, thinking you're D1, you're very D1 kind of thing. And Road Dogg's just like, oh, yeah, we'll bring your whole team down here. We'll wrestle right now. And it's like immediately it's like, I got back up my boy, but I was like, I didn't say anything, but part of me was like, dude, fucking chill. Like, act like that. But, yeah, like guys, like just kind of following his move a little bit. I was like, dude, all right, this guy's definitely a character. Like, I need to find out more. And then, dude, when we had him on, like, he was so much fun to talk to. Like, he can just talk all day. But it just seems like he's so sincere. Like when he says like he's in their guys, like the guys' corner, like he's in your corner, like just off the mat as well.
Oh, 100%, man. I mean, he did so many things for me to, better my life when I was at Clackamas. I don't know where I would be without the guy, and even, from a mentor standpoint, when, started coaching, no better role model to mimic or mirror, and just that, that feeling he gave me, from the corner to the center of the mat, just like you said, he'll go and fight anybody for his guys, and, that was always something I took from him was like, if I can make my guys feel, like they're untouchable because I got their back, that's, half the battle for me.
Yeah. I feel like guys like definitely can tell if you're being genuine or not.
Oh,
If you're
absolutely.
sincere, and like, have some actions and, the right, I think, words to kind of back it up. Like guys feel that,
Yeah.
and I think that's something that, I think definitely takes time to kind of develop and, build that trust with your guys. Is there anything you do like specifically, either with just with, because you work with the club, but it's all ages, right? It's high school,
Yeah.
it's youth, it's everything.
Yeah. We got
Like,
6-year-olds all the way to, the college kids that come back and are still seeking, advice or mentorship in the summertime, when they're in the room from their, home colleges or whatever, I just try to, show that same thing, that I learned from Roden is, show that you care. If that's, a text or that's checking in with them before practice, like how you feeling, how's this, how's that, how's mom, how's dad, those simple things go a long way, and talking to a lot of the recruits that, Josh recruits is like, that's what sold them was, just him being personable towards them, and if I can do that to my guys, they're going to trust me a lot more, and getting to the top of that mountain where, that trust really lies, it becomes a whole lot easier if you can kind of vibe with them on a personal level.
yeah, and I think for college coaching, like that's what I've noticed for the guys that kind of have that reputation for being really good recruiters. I just talked with Eric Morrill. I'm gonna drop the podcast next week, but dude, like super genuine guy. Kind of has, he's one of those guys that, I feel like it's very rare when you get to the end of your career and you actually got what you wanted. Like if your goal is to be an All-American or national
Yeah.
champion, you don't get it. But I just feel like, just the way that he interacts with guys. And I feel like you see this a lot more at smaller colleges. Like they actually
Yeah.
like, I mean, not to knock some of the Big Ten schools, and I'm not saying all of them do that, but a lot of it's just like, if you're not the guy, if you're not the starter, they either recruit over you or they just like look at the backup and then it's like, all right, you're kind of tossed to the wayside a little bit.
Absolutely. And you
Yeah.
gotta be able to have that personal relationship. Otherwise, those first two guys go out for some reason or another. You got to bring the third string up. Like you got to have at least some sort of personal connection to that guy, whether he's a freshman or he's been there for 4 years as a workout partner, like if
Yeah.
you're going to call on the guy to go battle for you or do something that's going to benefit you as, a head coach or assistant or shoot, even just from a team standpoint, you got to be able to have that repertoire with them to ask them, for that, a little bit of their trust.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so you get brought down basically to coach with Brett Sanchez for the club. What is it? It's UTB. I always forget what it stands for. It's like Unleash the Beast, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, came down. Um, he was at Mater Day at the time.
Yeah.
And, you heard the whole story, how that, transpired. And when we got there, or when I got there, Sean was on his way out. Maybe had like 2 or 3 weeks with him before he went up to Bakersfield. But, we had Uriel Beristain, we had Mateo Olmos, and couple other guys that kind of were the core of our program, and really, our goal and our foresight for Modern Day was through the club, just because we knew that being a private school, it was going to take time to get those guys to the point where, you're building a state competitive team. For the most part, you can't do that in 2, 3, 4 years. You need a youth program and you need to kind of develop those kids from an early standpoint, and we had a bunch of really, really good 7, 8-year-old kids that
Yeah.
are now sophomores and juniors in high school, that we saw the future with. And so we kept plugging and plugging and plugging, but at that time, we focused primarily just on the club. We had a kid named Trent Gillum who ended up state champ. He beat DJ Loren in the state finals. And, we had him, and then this kid named Darrell Gist, and a couple other kids that just showed up, and they weren't even our kids at Modern Day, but they showed up, they put their trust in us, and we took them all over the state, all over the country to try to, get these guys recognized for, the talent and the potential that we saw. They maybe weren't fully, ready to go yet when we sent them out the door because we only had a year or two with them. But, the work ethic was there, the potential was there. And what they did within San Diego, kind of helped spur our growth, as a club, as coaches, and the rest of it. The reputation kind of spread real quick. And then we went from, having 20 kids when I first got there to the next year we had 40, and then the next year after that we had 60. And, we were growing for a while until COVID hit and then kind of dispersed all that, but
yeah. So at what point did you go from Modern Day to Granite, and what was that transition?
COVID, 2020, it was rough. We got kicked out of Modern Day. They were super strict on what we could and couldn't do, and leaned more towards the couldn't. And, I tried to hustle, and I ended up subleasing a jiu-jitsu gym and tried to make that work for a little bit. And then I got word that they weren't going to, help us financially the way that they had initially kind of told us when we started this thing with Modern Day. And things were kind of just falling apart. Ended up losing a grip of kids to Poway and some other programs around the area. And at that point, I kind of just looked at the future and I was like, man, it's not here anymore. And the admin's fighting me when I'm going to the left, when I'm going to the right, when I'm going straight, they're fighting me every which way. So I just kind of saw the writing on the wall. I had 2 seniors at that point. And that's maybe 2021, I had 2 seniors. I got them through. And then last year would have been my first official year at Granite for high school. I started the club over at Granite in 2020 though. So I was making the drive from Modern Day all the way to Granite, like 4 days out of the week. And then
how far is that?
About 30 minutes. You're basically in Mexico for Modern Day. And then, you're basically as far east as you can get in San Diego County before you go over the mountains for Granite, so it's literally on opposite ends of the spectrum. It definitely could have been further from each other, but not by much,
Yeah. I feel like COVID definitely, I think in a lot of ways is like one of the worst things that can happen, but also like one of the best things. Like I felt like, obviously a lot of the high schools shut down and you just couldn't go in there because, obviously they don't want to deal with the liability part of it. And we ended up doing is just basically a lot of the local high schools in our area pretty much just got we saw there was this big gym and it had weights in it and they had volleyball courts laid out. And it was basically one of those gyms where it was too big to close. If they closed for COVID, they were done.
Yeah.
So it was better to just, risk getting a fine or getting a ticket or having the police pretty much come and shut you down.
Yep.
This is Bakersfield. So, that wasn't really going to happen, but basically we just rolled out 3 full mats. We had to roll them up and mop them every day. And at one point, we had 60 kids, high school coming in, just basically wrestling. And it was kids from, South Bakersfield, Centennial, North, Frontier, just basically just a hodgepodge of all these different teams just coming together. And it was kind of great actually, because I got to coach all these other kids in our area. I got to work with other coaches. I kind of got to, kind of in some ways kind of control the training. Because if you're in high school, it's you're kind of limited to this one training time.
Yeah.
We got to go in the mornings. We got to, go, as many times as we want for almost as long as we want. So I feel like I got a lot better as a coach just because.
Oh, absolutely.
It just, I got to work with different guys and different coaches, like I said. But when I wasn't teaching, it was all right, I'm going to just go down a rabbit hole of all right, what does Tom Ryan do? And I read his book and would watch all of his interviews and pretty much I would just do that. And that was just me through the entire COVID.
Yeah, no, it was awesome for those that, found a way to get the job done. It was cool, just like you said, no school really, they had the online stuff, but lot of it was done by 11, so we could go multiple times throughout the day, and like the kids didn't log on. The teachers weren't super strict, and like we had a lot more leeway in what we could and couldn't do in terms of time, and we had to hustle for our time because we were kicked out of the gym by like 4 o'clock, because the jiu-jitsu guys that owned it needed to use it, and their peak time was about 5 o'clock, so.
Yeah, I've talked to Brian Peterson. Brian Peterson, he coaches at Valencia, which their whole setup is kind of weird. I'm not going to get into it, but like their high school team isn't recognized by the high school, so they actually just train at Peterson's jiu-jitsu place. He was telling me like it's kind of gotten to the point where it's like, so he's a jiu-jitsu guy. He also coaches wrestling. It's almost like with jiu-jitsu, that brings in the most money. So it's like trying to figure out for him, because he's the high school coach and the club coach. It's like, okay, I also run this business. So trying to coordinate like what's the prime time for jiu-jitsu and what's like doable for wrestling. And, a lot of times wrestling kind of gets put on the back burner in those kind of situations.
Yeah. And that's kind of, ultimately what led me out to Granite. I called Sean and I was like, dude, UTB's kind of done. We can't run a kids program because, most parents aren't off work until 5, so they can't get their kid to anywhere before 5, and we had to be out of there. So I'm like, I heard you guys are looking for, kind of an elite level coach. Like, what about if we just merge the two clubs? And, he put me in touch with the president at the time, and Brady and a couple of the other coaches. We sat down and kind of talked about what the vision looked like, because they were looking at, kind of changing over from the old rec club to a new, kind of level oriented club where you got beginners, you got advanced kids, and you got your high school program, and that's where Granite Wrestling was born. We ditched UTB name and ended up going with Granite Wrestling Club, and then just started building from there. Was lucky to have a ton of kids that were already with the program. They were excited to be a part of something bigger and better, so they kind of helped get me through COVID in terms of, a paycheck and everything like that, and then once COVID was done and over with, we just started blowing up, word of mouth. And then we started doing Facebook ads and just growing this thing.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
It seems almost like Granite Hills, the high school team is almost like this perfect storm, because it's like, Jesse was there for a long time, right? Like, I don't know how many years, but, just knowing guys that I know in the area, it's like they would always see Jesse at tournaments. Like even Sean, when he was competing, was he talked smack about Jesse a little bit, but Jesse's funny. But Jesse was there for a long time, and then Brady came on, and he's a teacher there, I think.
Yep.
And then Sean shows up, and now you're like, hey, I'll come and run your youth program.
Yeah.
Like that's such a rare thing. And it's kind of cool just because I'm friends with I was college roommates with Sean for a little bit. I was on his couch for a few months, but it's just cool kind of seeing just my friends and people that I know like kind of have this perfect storm. And Granite finished in the top 10 this year at state, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's up and coming, and it just keeps getting better. We with all the things that I had built at UTV, those guys that went and wrestled in college are now back. I have, like I said, Darrell Gist, who, he wrestled at Northwestern College out in Iowa and NAIA school out there. And he was ranked, top 10 in the country, and had a season-ending injury his last year. Otherwise, he would have possibly, taken the school record for most takedowns. So I got a guy like that who is now running my beginners program. So I have him doing beginners and, me kind of running the advanced. And then, as of this week, I got my boy Mateo back too. So,
Nice.
Going to start integrating him in the mix too. And, we're just blessed with these guys that are returning and can add to this, kind of last year where we're going to be really, really tough before we kind of, start rebuilding a little bit.
Yeah. So talk about Mateo a little bit. I know you're rocking his shirt right now.
Yeah.
So is he coming back to stay, or is he just here for the summer?
No, he's back to stay.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, he's doing his master's program at San Diego State University. His mom and sisters live down here, and so he's down here for good.
Dude, I can see it now, man. I can see it. You guys, yeah, good things are coming.
Yeah,
What is the year projection of when you guys are gonna knock off Poway?
man. I'm hoping, within the next 4 to 5 years, we've got a lot of really good fifth and sixth graders right now, and if we can keep adding to those that are already kind of built and ready to rock and roll, they just need to continue to mature. And, some of them need to gain weight so they can, make a 106 weight class. But, some of these little guys are just unreal, in terms of where their mentality is, where their technique is. They're just leaps and bounds ahead of where I was when I was that age.
Yeah.
But if we can keep building and growing with that core group of kids, we'll be right there competing hardcore, I think, within the next 4 to 5 years.
Awesome. When you guys get done with the state tournament, I feel like this is something that because I coach the high school and I also coach the club, trying to find that sweet spot of switching from folk style to freestyle. Like, I mean, I think after the state tournament, I think going to like a tournament like Reno or even like folk style state for USA Wrestling. SUA has an event too. I think those are good things to go. But trying to train for that, but then also it's kind of a quick turnaround after that for freestyle for some of these bigger freestyle events.
Yeah.
How do you kind of help make that turnaround happen?
So I've kind of just over the last few years kind of figured out what that sweet spot looks like. When I first got to UTB, I was hammering Brett to do freestyle and Greco in the off season, and him being a Clovis guy, he absolutely refused and was just like, nah, dude, folk style. And then we were actually at SUA State one year, and it was the year that Vincenzo knocked off Aymar, and then they went 3 in a row for national champs at 65, 74, and 84. And he looked at me, he's like, all right, dude, we'll do freestyle now. Just knowing that those guys were all, former world champs and stuff like that, so we finally kind of got to get it going. And then once he moved back, I really started focusing on it, getting the culture built a little bit, started, 3 years ago, just taking 2 guys to Fargo. We took 4 last year, and then we're taking 14 this year. But
that's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. So
is that girls and boys?
Yeah, we have 12 boys, 2 girls.
Nice.
But a lot of that just came from, building the culture and, hyping up Fargo and, really putting freestyle at the forefront of things as soon as the state tournament was over. With me not being in the room this year, coaching, I really tried to hype up, when I did get to see these guys, just hype up freestyle season. And this year was the first year we foregoed NHSCA. We didn't go out there to Virginia Beach this year. In years past, we'd gone to Reno. We foregoed that, and we just pushed all of our chips in the middle for this freestyle and Greco thing and the Fargo dream. And we ended up the weekend of NHSCA, we were up in Washington competing at Northwest Regionals to try to get up most, if not all, qualified. And we had a few that didn't qualify there that, we had to kind of piece together at Western Regionals and state and stuff like that. But, for the most part, that jump was everything, because it gave us an extra month to get ahead. And I feel like now our guys are just now starting to hit their stride in terms of, freestyle mode and, not having those habits that you bring in from the transition from folk style to freestyle. It takes months to kind of redial this brain and get it automatic,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially like, finishing underneath somebody, like if you're going like a single leg and just being wary, like, so you don't get chest wrapped when they cover your head or lock in the crotch and try to roll you. That's something that I think just the way that we've had our postseason, or after our season rather, Like, I feel like our folk style results, I think, are fine. And our development with that's great. But some of our kids, like, they kind of just struggle in freestyle. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, dude, you can't give up. Like, if you get taken down, like, you can't give up a trap arm. Like, understanding when you get taken down, like, if you're getting taken down with the single leg, like, you got to make sure your legs are spread apart and you can't give up that lace. Because once you get something like that, like, it just, the match can be over so quickly.
Well, and I think a lot of it is because California, we spend so much time, you know, in scramble positions and, you know, mat wrestling in our neutral, you know, and you can't do that a lot in freestyle. You know, if your hips are up in the air and you're anticipating, you know, maybe a scramble, you know, and your hips are up, you're going to get rolled. You know, one thing that kind of killed us at the beginning of the freestyle season was Iranian position, you know, hanging on to that, you know, guys taking us, you know, straight back over the top of, you know, an Iranian position, and we're giving up 2 or 4, or, you know, just silly stuff like that, where it's like, you just got to know the rules of freestyle and game to those rules a little bit more than you have to game and folk style, you know?
Yeah. I kind of want to talk about just transitioning to Colin Guffey, because, dude, he's a big time scrambler. And, you know, I like the way he wrestles. Like, I like scrambling too a lot. I kind of given Sean and Brady talked a little bit like, dude, he's got to develop some kind of offense, right? So really just for him, when he kind of goes into Fargo, I know for freestyle, you know, he's got some guys kind of that are ranked ahead of him by flow. But I think for Greco, he might be the highest ranked guy coming into the tournament for his weight. So really kind of like what are your expectations for him going into this tournament?
I mean, freestyle, we just got back from junior duels, you know, 2-3 weeks ago. And, you know, he went undefeated in Greco. He went undefeated in freestyle, didn't give up a single offensive, defensive point in freestyle, you know, so we're expecting big things, you know, for him in freestyle. You know, if we're up to him, I don't know that he would wrestle Greco, but, you know, thing is, you know, if you win it in freestyle, then, you know, we'll talk about, you know, not wrestling Greco or whatever. But you know, freestyle, I think that he has the ability to be in the finals if he puts everything together the way that I know he can. You know, been working on, you know, hand fighting a little bit more, and not letting guys slow us down. You know, with all that length, it's real tough when you start getting in the trenches and you're kind of tied up here, you know, and that length has nowhere to go, you know. So we've been talking about, you know, clearing ties a little bit more and, you know, being offensive off, you know, the touch and goes and stuff like that, to where, you know, we're going to be able to showcase our best abilities and not allow them to, you know, kind of slow us down and put us in a position we don't necessarily want to be in.
Yeah, I feel like with that length, like, it's so hard to win inside position. Just like you said, you got all that length and you got nowhere to go. A lot of our guys in our team at Frontier and Elite Force, they got super long arms and long limbs. We got one kid he went 2-2 at state last year at 182s, like long arms, long legs, but then like a super short torso. So it's like it's hard for him to get his feet back. You know, so it was kind of frustrating because he's been wrestling for so long. But it was kind of cool seeing him at Freestyle State, like things actually kind of clicked, and he was like starting to learn how to wrestle from, you know, particular holds, and then being able to scramble when he needs to. Because he's like traditionally like super orthodox, like no scrambling, like nothing. But it's like, dude, your body's just not made for that, right? Like, doesn't mean you should know how, but when it comes to, you know, winning some positions, like being able to wrestle outside the box, I think is super important.
Yeah, you got to do what makes you special, you know, as a wrestler. And that's what I try to emphasize with these guys is, you know, we have our core curriculum and what we, you know, like to teach, you know, from a fundamental standpoint. But, you know, that's all fine and good, you know, but don't, you know, build on that for what makes you special. You know, if you're a guy that, you know, can shoot from the open, you know, we need to be, you know, stutter step and moving our feet, fakes. Whereas, you know, somebody like me, I don't move that way. You know, I'm big. So, you know, I like to be in the hand fight and, you know, stay heavy on a head and dig for underhooks, where, you know, some of our guys, you'll never see them dig for an underhook ever, you know. So I'm big on allowing them to, you know, kind of take hold of how they want their wrestling to be, you know, as long as they have that IQ behind it.
Yeah. Where I think we kind of talked about a little bit, like when you think about trying to build, I guess ultimately like elite wrestlers and elite competitors, you talk a lot about just, like you talked about Vincenzo Joseph and Isaiah Martinez. Joseph, he won these different age group world medals and things like that. Is that kind of your frame of mind for like, all right, this is why we're making this freestyle like push? Because
Yeah,
I mean, you
yeah,
see like,
absolutely.
yeah, you see like Clovis and Buchanan. Like, I don't think Buchanan has anybody that's going to Fargo.
And I think
Not
they have
that scene.
one Angelo Barahona, who is I think he's the backup 70 or 60 pounder this year, but that's about it. I think Clovis has Nikkei Zinkin going and
Yeah, Reyes too, I
Adrian,
think.
yeah,
Yeah,
Reyes. But outside of that, yeah, that's really it. You don't see a ton of those guys on the Fargo trip.
yeah. I don't know. I think like for me growing up, like you just did both. Like once your folk style season was done, you just went and did freestyle.
Yeah.
I lived in Illinois until I was 12, and
Oh
I
wow.
would have gone to the high school that like Abe Assad and Brian Murphy and Tony Ramos and
Mm-hmm,
Oscar
mm-hmm.
Gomez and all those guys. And that's just what you did. Like you just got done with your middle school wrestling season. All right, and then spring you go wrestle freestyle and Greco, and that's just like what you did.
Yeah.
Um, but California, I feel like it's not like that, and I think part of it maybe like the club system is a little bit different. Um, at least it's weird in Baker still. It's like a lot of the clubs are all through, like all the youth wrestling is through the high schools. Like it's not like an independent thing.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple that are kind of like that, but uh, really it's just the high school folk style coaches are in charge of the club, and it's just like, okay, the end game is always, well, how do we win a high school state title? Not
Right.
necessarily, how do we go on to win a world title for U17, or how do we go on to win a Fargo title,
Yeah.
for these different age groups. And I think there's like a couple different paths, to be great at something. It all kind of depends on what your goal is. But I don't know. I think long term, if you're trying to be the best wrestler you can be, yeah, you're probably going to have to wrestle freestyle. You're probably going to have to, at some point, maybe you don't wrestle Greco, but uh, yeah, I don't know.
For me, it's wrestling is wrestling is wrestling. It's like it's all gonna amount to the same thing eventually. You see it every single year. How many Clovis kids get thrown in head and arms at the state tournament? How many, of those Central Valley kids get tossed up because they don't wrestle those styles? And if you don't feel that head and arm coming, how are you supposed to defend it? So it's like, for me, freestyle teaches you things that folk style can't. For instance, shooting it when you're taking a shot, you got to get right to your feet. Like we were talking about earlier, you can't really stay on the mat a whole lot and freestyle and be successful. You need to try to come to your feet and finish where you can. Just, and everything else is transferable too. A gut wrench, if you can get a good gut, guess what else you can get in folk style? You can get a gnarly little 2-on-1 tilt. It's like the mechanics are the same when you break them down.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, if you look at like the best college wrestlers, dude, their transition wrestling is sweet. Like I was just talking to a high school kid not too long ago, but I was like, who's your favorite wrestler to watch? And he's like, David Taylor. I'm like, dude, you look at David Taylor when he was in college, like he would go from takedown right to a tilt, right to this, right to that, put the legs in,
Yeah.
and he would put up like 10 points in such a short amount of time. It's like you want to be able to break, I think, into that elite level. I think you have to be able to develop that skill of transitioning right from neutral to mat wrestling to parterre.
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of freestyle teaches a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like you can't
No,
just
absolutely.
relax.
No, the moment you relax is, when you're up 8-0 and all of a sudden now it's 18-8, and it's like, what the heck just happened? You gotta stay going forward, stay in position, do everything right for an entire 6 minutes.
Yeah. So you leave for Fargo tomorrow at 11, you said?
Yep.
So I guess like for somebody that's never been, I never went. I think I didn't really compete outside of 2 hours from my house, 2-hour drive. But So for someone that's never been, like, what are some things that, you know, kind of come up with Fargo that maybe like you should be aware of? Because I know, like, for one, like travel costs, like that's, I think, a little more obvious, but things like, you know, just going from your hotel to the Fargo Dome, like, do you use Uber? Do you use a taxi? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so I mean, if you you know, like if you're a spectator and you didn't get a hotel like 10 months ago, you know, you're pretty much going to be SOL. Like you're going to be super far away from the arena. With it being small town America out there, it's not too hard to, you know, get around. Last year, we were super last minute. Last year, I didn't know I was going to be on the staff till very, very last minute. We ended up getting our guys qualified at Greco State, which gave us just about a little over a month and a half to really turn around and be out in Fargo. And uh, it was just a nightmare. We ended up finding, you know, a shithole over in Minnesota somewhere, Moorhead, I think.
Oh, dude, that's
So
how far away is that's like an hour away, isn't it?
it was like 35, 40 minutes. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like there was just nothing anywhere close. And so we ended up doing that. And then kind of just when they had downtime, I was still in the arena, you know, and so that didn't make my guys very happy, you know. So I ended up, you know, kind of telling them like, listen, find somebody you like and, you know, go hang out with them in the dorms while I'm coaching and doing what I'm doing over here because I can't do anything for you, you know. So that was kind of the final straw for me. I was like, you know, next year we're all going to be in the dorms. It's just going to be that much easier, you know. No, nobody really has to worry about anything. You know, the kids are given a food card, so they get 3 meals a day on their little food card in the rec hall or dining hall. So takes that out of our hands. If they're not competing, you know, they can walk to and from the arena to the dorms where they're staying. California's super lucky. We get the air conditioned dorms. That was the other reason why I finally decided that was going to jump on the dorm thing was last year was the first year they got air conditioned dorms. In years prior, they were just sweating their freaking nuts off and hoping that, you know, there was going to be a storm later in the afternoon so that it would bring it down from 95 to 85 maybe, you know.
Yeah, how do you set up that deal with the dorms?
I think it was just our state board just really hounding the guys at Fargo.
Yeah.
And they kind of give you know, they'll give first choice to, you know, some of the bigger states that are bringing more guys, bringing teams that are valuable to the tournament, you know, meaning you're bringing champs, you're bringing, you know, medalists, and you're placing high as a team, you know, so they kind of give that that luxury to those that are kind of winning and bringing value to the tournament. You know, this year, I'm not sure how many girls California has, but for boys, we're taking the most we've ever taken in the history of California, USA, wrestling in Fargo. We're taking, you know, 150, 160 boys, I think, this year.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at, you know, who signed up and who qualified for at least for junior boys, and I looked at some of the other ones. But dude, like, I actually think California was it third last year? It was what Iowa got first for junior boys freestyle. I can't remember who's got second. Maybe like Ohio or PA or something.
Yeah.
And then California got third. But dude, like, the amount of guys I think are going, and then the quality of guys, and just looking at their freestyle background and experience, dude, I actually think California can make a run to win.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was a shame that we weren't in the gold pool for duels, you know, but we were right there in the mix for duels. You know, in Greco, they took second in the country at junior duels, and for the most part, you know, usually, you know, give or take some points and kind of some placings, you pretty much end up with the same results. So, you know, all goes well, you know, we'll be battling for a junior Greco national title we won a cadet national title last year in Greco. So believe it or not, California is a little bit of a Greco state now. But hopefully we can get up there in the top 3 again for junior boys too. We're definitely missing some of our hammers that are on the world team, or are choosing just not to go out this year. Like an Isaiah Quintero or Sahakian. Not having him in the mix, kind of hurts. And then of course not having Montona's there is a rough one too, because you can always count on a medal or a championship from those boys, But
yeah,
I think we got a good group of kids though. Should be exciting to watch.
Yeah, I'm kind of actually looking forward to. I saw that. Both Merrills are now juniors, and
they're both 220s.
They're at the same weight, and
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to be put in the bracket either.
Yeah.
I hope someone's just like, dude, let's just put them on opposite sides of the bracket, just so they don't meet up before that.
Yeah. No,
dude, I can't imagine being a parent.
Right? I couldn't imagine either. But I think they'll do the right thing and put them on opposite ends of the bracket, which isn't necessarily always the good thing, because you lose your first match and, maybe other dude loses the second. Now you're, going to be in the same place. But, maybe just scatter them around in there and hope that they don't wrestle till finals or semis, But I think Cody, he was up at camp and he looks good. And, I think he's going to be in it to win it, for both freestyle and Greco.
Cody's the older one.
Yeah, he's returning world champ.
Yeah, and he got hurt. I was talking to one of his coaches. He got hurt like right before the state meet, which sucks.
Yeah.
But I guess it's good that he's healthy and he's wrestling again. When you were at the camp, like, was there anyone else that kind of stood out to you that was like, dude, this guy's looking good that maybe we wouldn't expect?
I think kid that he's been impressing me since Western Regionals was Tommy Tongson from Exeter. Kid's phenomenal. Just the way he moves. Last year, I coached him pretty much the whole tournament. He lost his first match of the tournament out there in a 128 man bracket, and dude wrestled like 12 matches to get to the blood rounds and ended up losing a really, really tough one in the bloods, but I think this year will be the year that he gets the job done. I'm excited to see kind of some of our cadets. We got one that, I'm on our team that I'm really excited for. He went 18-1 out at cadet duels. His name's Junior Boomenlog. I think he's going to do some big things in Greco. Freestyle would be awesome if we could hit the podium, but Greco, I think we're going to do big things there. Another one that, one of Alex's boys, Dave Hawkins, I big things from that kid. He works so freaking hard, and, he's just a specimen, man.
Dude, I went up and drove with them. I went to go visit Alex and kind of just went to some wrestling rooms up there. And I went to his backyard, and they had rolled out like a little old mat.
Yeah.
And me, Alex, and David were just kind of rotating group of 3 and just kind of getting a hard spar. And dude, Alex was telling me, he's like, oh yeah, I got this kid. He's going to be a freshman next year. Like, he's going to contend for a state medal. And I was like, kind of like, all right, we'll see, because I hadn't really seen him wrestle before that.
Yeah.
And I see him, I'm like, dude, you're a pretty big kid. And I felt him. I was like, dude, you are so strong. I'm a little bit bigger than him, but as soon as I grabbed him, I'm like, dude, you're strong. And then, sure enough, I think he got maybe 7th or 8th at state. And with freestyle and Greco, dude, he's just a dog. Like, I remember watching one of his Greco matches, and he's just 5-ing kids, like, no problem.
Yeah.
And then his sister was tough too. She was a state champ.
She's out at Iowa.
Yeah. Dude, I got a question about Boomenglog. So how long has he been wrestling?
Since he was a freshman. So like two years max, maybe like a year and a half, if you're really putting time frame on it.
Yeah. Sean and Brady were, I was like, you guys are messing with me. Like, there's no way. Cause he had beaten, one of our guys, he ended up getting hurt, ended up going 0-2 at state, but that was pretty tough. Like he, potentially could have been like a top 15, possibly around 12 guy, and ended up kind of getting into a dogfight, and Boom McGlog just pulled one out at Temecula. And I'm like, dude, like I haven't seen this kid before. And I asked Sean, I was like, dude, how long has he been wrestling? He's like, oh, this is like, like his first or second year. And I'm like, what? Like, that's crazy. But dude, watching him wrestle and just watching his athleticism, and I heard I guess he's super strong too. That's super cool, man.
Yeah, one of the strongest human beings I've ever wrestled with. College boys, high school boys. Like now, once he learns how to, use that strength in a functional way, it's gonna be game over for a lot of the guys.
Yeah, I bet he's no fun to wrestle with either.
Nah.
Dude, so how often do you wrestle? Like, how often do you wrestle the high school kids?
I try to wrestle with them, every day that I can. Some days it's just me in there on the whistles. So, unless we're actively flowing or, wrestling live and somebody doesn't have a partner, then I'll get in. But if not, if they're all even numbers, then I just gotta run practice and whatnot. But, when I get Sean in there and Brady in there and those guys are in the mix, then we can kind of rotate out and, get some looks, but, I feel like I'm on the wall more than I could or should be, but,
it's hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah. I mean, especially like, I don't know how often do Brady, and I don't mean to put him on blast, but how often do you get some of the high school assistants in there for club?
Depends like on what they got going on with their life and stuff like that. Sometimes we'll be lucky enough to, get, one in there every single day of the week. Other times, they'll all come in on a Wednesday, you know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, we're kind of changing practice up a little bit so that way we can take advantage of having these guys in there. Maybe we'll flow a little bit extra that day, and during that flow time is really when we kind of can roll through some techniques without kind of interrupting the practice plan, really. And then we're super lucky with like I said, the amount of guys that we have around, since we don't technically have alumni per se. I've got buddies that wrestled at West Virginia. He was a California State finalist, wrestled Terrapelli in the finals back in the day, and David Hardigy. Yeah, so got to get him in the room last week, and then got some of the college boys in the room, that are home for school, and then some that have graduated, and we just try and give them as many looks as we can, to kind of supplement for the days that I can't go with them or Sean can't go with them. Perfect world, we have somebody in there 3-4 times a week, with the guys hands on that aren't, high school kids.
Yeah. That's always something. Luckily, it's usually me and Carlo Franciotti, we're pretty consistent at practice. And then, usually one of the other assistants will be there too, but yeah, it's hard getting in there and wrestling with the high school guys sometimes. Just like you said, like, we kind of need more eyes in the room just to kind of watch it and make sure they're doing the right things. But it's also like, at least my coaching style, like it's better for me just to work with a small group or work with one-on-one with a guy. Like, I feel like that's where I can be the most productive and they can get the most out of it. And I think, I don't know. You gotta be able to run a room, but it's hard to run a room while also wrestling with the guys too.
Yeah. And if you're, sparring or drilling or whatever, I'm big on, walking around the room and, picking things out in the, moment, like, hey, get your hips in, head up. Or, if we're in a scramble, kind of coaching them through the scramble position and, helping them that way, and you really can't do that unless you're, if you're flowing with a guy, then you can be like, nope, put your head here, bad decision, and kind of running through that checklist to get a good solid finish out of them, and get them to understand the what's and the whys, but, running a room and wrestling at the same time, it's no joke,
Yeah. Do you feel like you got like high school guys that, kind of want to just beat you up sometimes, or like they're really working really hard where maybe they're doing something awkward and they kind of jack you up, just being
Oh
silly?
yeah. I mean, yeah, we got one kid that, you can tell just doesn't have a whole lot of experience. He comes from a school that, maybe puts 4 to 6 guys on the mat, period, like the whole season kind of deal, so he'll come in for club, and like we were wrestling, and, I'm trying to hand fight the guy, and he's just backing up. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? And like all of a sudden he like rears back and like takes his shoulder shot. Like it was supposed to be maybe a high C, but then he kind of just drives his shoulder like right above my knee. So it like hyperextends my knee and I fall to my butt a little bit, and it's like, you can't prepare for that, because I literally had no idea that was even gonna go. That was it was like the worst shot I've ever seen. Like, but the way he hit me was just like a football tackle. It was just like, son of a bee, dude.
It's weird how you're more likely to get hurt wrestling somebody that doesn't know how to wrestle than you are with somebody that does know how
Oh,
to wrestle.
absolutely. Yeah. And it's crazy. It's I try to avoid those guys at all costs. We actually have one kid he's been my club kid since 8 years old, 9 years old. And he went to different high schools, and then he ended up transferring to Granite last year and ended up getting a full year sit, but he's been in the room wrestling and doing his thing. And, the kid is a I call him a bull in the china shop all the time, because it's freaking guy, you can tell him to flow and he will not flow. He won't ease his pace up. He won't do anything soft, easy. Like, and I'm like, dude, just try to like think through the position. And you can tell he's trying so hard, but then he just ends up ripping your arms off, like up until like 2 weeks ago, we thought he was just going to Fargo to wrestle Greco. And so I would just have all the coaches that were in the room kind of, jump in on him. If there's one coach, okay, you're Sergio's partner for the day, and he successfully beat up like almost every single coach. Like one of our coaches had ended the day with like two nostril plugs. He had a freaking cut on his forehead. Like it was just beat up. And I'm like, what? What happened? He's like, Sergio, dude, he just freaking, doesn't know how to drill. He just wrestles live the whole time, and like, I'm just barely getting over. I think I'm getting over it. I don't know. It might hurt even worse tomorrow because I wrestled today, but he went like double overs. Like I was trying to work a position with him on, double unders and step in the corner. And so he's like, oh yeah, I got it. And he goes double overs here and he doesn't arch. He just rips me across his chest. I'm like, oh, freaking, I felt my shoulder pop. I'm like, son of a bee, dude. You just freaking broke me. And it's been like 2 weeks.
Dude, that was like, it was kind of the same position where I really like first jacked up my knee. It was during COVID. I was wrestling with a kid that like, I kind of just know, but he didn't go to the high school that I coached. And and we can talk about this as a separate question. Sometimes I let the kids get on my legs and I just try to wrestle out of it. And if they take me down, they take me down. It's no big deal. Right. I hope Sean watches this, because I know Sean says he never gives up a takedown. So I kind of let this kid, kind of get on my leg and then kind of get in a good position. I just tried to do everything to not get taken down. And we were going to the takedown and my hands probably touched. It probably was a takedown, but I just kept wrestling through it. Yeah. And he came up from a leg attack and went up to the body and body locked and pinched his knees around either side of my knee. And instead of arching or going over his shoulder, he just straight ripped it across. And literally, dude, I don't know what happened. I never saw the doctor, but dude, it was like the most pain I've ever felt probably in my life. And I was like, dude, ow. And then like I tried to get up and like my knee wobbled and like I fell and I was like, ow. And then I just couldn't get up. And people saw like from across the room and came over and just grabbed me and like tried to pull me off the mat. And I'm like, I'm good. And I tried like walking on it and I tried walking it off. And then I went back in like a dummy and I tried a mat work tourniquet and I stepped and my knee wobbles again. I'm like, nah, I'm done. So for like a month, I just didn't like do any live wrestling. I didn't even really drill. Yeah. And even sometimes still like randomly like getting up or like going up the stairs, like I have to be really careful of like how I step, because I know if I step wrong, my knee is just going to wobble.
Yeah. Knee injuries are no joke, and they'll stay with you forever, and they get worse as you get older.
Yeah. I feel like, they say like wrestling adds like 10 years to your life or something like that. You know what I mean? Like you feel so much older, younger.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's what like I was telling my wife probably like 2-3 months ago. I'm like, this is stupid. I shouldn't be having to take free ibuprofen every morning. I'm not that old yet. Whether it was like my stiff neck or like my knees, like in college I had, a knee surgery on both knees, so I'm just counting down the days till I get old and I can just, be in a walker or something.
You watch, I mean, Jay Robinson, obviously, I'm sure, but dude, so I did J Rob. It was like first, like, so I was a J Rob counselor, and it was the last year that they had it. And at first, like, I saw him and I was kind of like, wasn't really like wanting to like engage with them directly just because I got a little starstruck,
Yeah.
But yeah, eventually I just, we all had lunch in like a cafeteria. So I just like sat next to him and just started talking to him. And dude, like just watching him like going up and down stairs. Like when he goes down the stairs backwards, and it takes him like
that's
minutes,
crazy,
like to go down the flight of stairs. And then you watch him, like sometimes he'll show technique, and like he can't really move like well, so like he can't really do the technique well, but like he'll tell you like what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And then I had a buddy who rode with them from camp to camp, and he said it was one of the scariest things ever. So one of his arms doesn't really work too well, so he drives like this and like holds his bad arm.
No way.
And like he'll be like, he was like talking to him, like I think it was like a maybe like a 7 or 8 hour drive. So he's like talking to him like this and like not really watching the road.
Yeah.
And at one point it starts raining super hard. So like Jay Robinson, he's got one arm, he's steering the wheel. My buddy's like, dude, you need to watch the road, but he's not going to tell him that because he's Jay Robinson. But when I think like down the road, like how do I want to be as a coach? I want to be like a 70-something-year-old man that's just like broken and beat up. They can't get up and down the stairs, but it's still freaking doing it. You know what I
mean? Absolutely, man. That's the dream right there. I see, old man Terrapelli doing his thing, and I'm like, that's what I want to be. I don't want to ever think about the day where I can't freaking put shoes on and even just, be on a mat, just barely tiptoeing, like that would be, the worst day of my life when I can't lace up my shoes anymore,
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, obviously you can only compete for so long, and, at some point your coaching has to evolve. Like you can't just be the practice guy. Like you got to learn how to use your voice, and, maybe, when I get to be 60 something, 70 something, yeah, maybe I'm probably not going to be the guy running practice. Maybe I'm the administrator guy.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm making phone calls. Maybe I'm doing that. But yeah, dude, I mean, I don't see my future as of now without coaching in some manner, being involved in sport with some degree.
Absolutely.
So I kind of want to talk to you about Cali Culture Wrestling a little bit.
Yeah.
So you started this Instagram page. How long ago was it? How long has it been out?
I think like the first post was probably like 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. And I just kind of, my undergrad was sports marketing, sports management. So I kind of, have a marketing brain, and I, I've always like building the social media stuff, but basically how my day works right now, I wake up and then I hang out with my 9-month-old son, and my wife works from home. And so we just kick it all day. Sometimes I have time to do stuff. When he was not moving and crawling and stuff, I had a lot more time, but so I, but I'm still at home. I can't do anything. So I'm like, man, I'll just, mess around and see if I can grow a page. And like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but if I can grow a following, and just have that following, it's not going to go away. So then maybe eventually I can turn it into, a website or something, you know what I mean? But I just had a couple reels that just took off, and people started sharing a couple pieces of content. I did it actually. My first big one, I think, was right before Women's Nationals. I did like, who to look out for type type post, and the women's community in California just ran with it. And I think I got probably like 200 new ads just from that, but yeah, so I try now. I try to post on it when I can. Mostly right now, it's just easy stuff. Like I follow all these kids, and I'll see when when they make their announcements or whatever, for commitments or transfers or whatever, and then I'll just repost that, or any big California news. I've got a little template, and I just swap out the picture and just throw a caption on there and let it ride.
Yeah, dude. I think that's awesome, and I think obviously, I think just the more coverage that wrestling has, particularly with California, I think the better. And I think I was just talking with again, I interviewed Eric Morrill this morning, and I guess early afternoon, but yeah, one of the things we were talking about is just Flow Wrestling used to do like the program, and they would like cover all these schools, and now it's like I don't know. I feel like it's just not quite the same. And I think it would be cool, and this is, I kind of want to pick your brain about something after. So maybe when we're done recording, we can talk about it. But I just feel like there's a market for, something like that. Like, why not?
And especially in California, we used to have the California Wrestler, and Cho did such a good job with it for a long, long, long time until, the site went down and the forum went down, and like, people just didn't know what to do for a little bit. And it was like, Cormier was supposed to take it over and put it on Rockfin, and it never really transpired that way. And that's kind of where, my head was at initially. I was like, man, I saw kind of like Iowa Power Wrestling and like some of those Rockfin channels, and I saw how much, money those were making. I'm like, man, if I could, do something like that and help California at the same time and give our kids the love they deserve, because, Flo and, Willie and some of these other guys are super East Coast biased or, Midwest biased. It takes a lot for us to get love or grace by those guys, So for me, I just want to showcase what we have in California, showcase how hard my kids work, here in San Diego, and the rest of the kids up and down the coast, and at the end of the day, the more we can get their name out there and shared out and get their stories, the more opportunities are going to arise for those kids,
Yeah. And I think, ultimately, like, that's what it's about, is we're here to help the kids, man.
Yeah.
Here to help the kids.
Give them the opportunities, that I didn't have, I didn't have, the coaches that, were helping me get recruited. I didn't have, things to showcase my talents necessarily, like I try to, for a long time, especially last year, I don't know if you follow our Granite page, I try and post videos of our guys all the time. Last year, I kind of fell off the wayside this year with it, but if I can get some of these kids to be seen somehow, some way, by whoever, maybe that'll open a door that they may not have had before,
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, hey, we've been going for about an hour. I got maybe one more question, then I want to pick your brain after we're done recording. Dude, so I feel like I ask this question to every single coach that I encounter, and I haven't been able to figure out an answer. How do you balance like work, life, and coaching?
You want to say family first, and it's tough, especially like for me, I'm gone all the freaking time, but when I got serious with my wife, I kind of told her, I was like, listen, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is kind of what to expect, and like I don't want to put it on you this way, but if this schedule isn't going to work for you, like I understand, I don't really want to, go and get any deeper into the relationship if this isn't something you're going to be all in, because, just like, I watched Roden raise his kid in our program, Ellie, his oldest, and I just saw how his wife traveled with him and traveled with the team, and his oldest daughter came with us, and I was like, you know what, like that's what I want to do. Like when I'm a coach, I want to be a family oriented thing, so I started involving her in, more of the club stuff that we were doing. We try to do club activities and stuff like that, tournaments and fun stuff after the tournaments that the kids are going to remember, because they're not always going to remember, how they did at the tournament, but they're always going to remember, going to Dave and Buster's and hanging out with their friends afterwards, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
just inviting her to those. And now that, we've got a son in the mix, all the club parents absolutely adore him, so he now is kind of the team mascot, and he gets to go everywhere and do everything. And the balance is really just involving my wife and making it a family oriented thing, because if you don't, you're gonna have that disconnect, like some of our quote unquote biggest vacations are to freaking Fresno and the DoubleTree,
yeah.
So I went, and that, like, when she wants to go to a state meet or whatever, we get to stay at the DoubleTree, and I make sure that we got a spot there, because it's easy for her to just walk over with Julian. And when I'm up there by myself with the kids, we'll stay in the scummiest hotel, that there is, as long as, we can fit enough kids in there and make it cheap enough to get the kids up there, but when she comes, get to have a little bit of kind of an adult kind of real life stuff, you're not traveling like a college kid anymore.
Yeah. I got my fiance Emma to go on a wrestling trip with me. I felt bad because, like, I kind of just told her, like, hey, we're gonna go, I'm gonna go to San Diego for a tournament. And I think I can't remember exactly where it was, but dude, she like drove down with me, and we stayed at Everett Pratt's house the first night, like the night before the tournament. And then, coached our guys, and then the night after, we just got a hotel and just hung out, and then we just had time to ourselves. I kind of talked to her after. She's like, yeah, I don't really want to do that again, but
yeah,
but dude, she gets it. And I feel like just having a partner like that is it's hard and it's rare. And I feel like with a lot of coaches, it's hard balancing that time, because it's like I'll get a text message from a kid, and it's like trying to measure, okay, well, how important is this text message right now? Like, it might be something that is super important for them right now in that moment, but if it's something like, hey, I forgot my shoes, and there's like a practice at, an open room at, BC or Bakersfield College or something like that. When can I get my shoes? I'm like, well, it's kind of late right now. I don't want to go back to high school. Like, I'm home now, but like tomorrow in the morning, I'll be there. I'll open up the room for you. But it's like, I don't have to go right now. I can do it tomorrow morning. You know what I mean? Just things like that.
Yeah, when I think, having her work from home, and being home all the way until 3:00, 3:30 in the afternoon, like, I feel like that satisfies a lot of the time that we don't get when I'm traveling, and not to mention, she's a rock star. She's super understanding and supportive of just about everything, and she's watched some of these kids that are freshmen, sophomore now, watch them grow up, so she gets it from that aspect of things too. She's seen these kids go from 6, 7, 8-year-old kids to freshmen, sophomores, and juniors in high school right now. And, now it kind of tugs on her heartstrings a little bit too. And she's got to know the boys and the girls and their families. And, you turn it into a big family. She kind of looks forward to going to a wrestling tournament every now and again, because now she gets to see X, Y, and Z, that she maybe doesn't get to see on a regular basis. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a sweet deal that, she gets to work from home. Like, that's awesome. You guys just get to spend family time together.
Dude, it's I mean, days like today, sometimes she'll have like 4 or 5 meetings, and, we don't see her except for maybe at lunch, you know what I mean? But that's still, I got to tell myself, and tell him when he gets old enough too. And it's like, most people don't even get that hour, for lunch or whatever, so super grateful, super blessed for that aspect of things, you know, and it makes it easier when I got to pick up and go to Fargo for 10 days, you know, like I don't have to worry about, hey, who's going to take care of my son during the day? Like, you know, she figures out how to make it work and keeps the house afloat, you know?
All right, man. Well, I appreciate having you on. Dude, it's been fun, and good luck to you and good luck to Team Cali this
Thanks,
week.
bro.
We'll be
Yes,
following.
sir. It's gonna be awesome. Thanks for having me, bro.
All right, man.